What's up, guys? It's Ben with 2020 election predictions, and in today's videos, I'm going to show you why the 2020 presidential election will be easy to predict. This is not clickbait. I really think it only comes down to one state, and that is the state of Florida. In my past video, I explained why I think that Florida is going to be the tipping point state. And for some explanation, what the tipping point state is basically the state that is defined as the state that gets the eventual winner to 270. So none of the other states really matter. It's just that one state. So in the 2000 presidential election, the only state that mattered at the end of the day was Florida, and it was the most incredibly close state. And George Bush ended up winning that. But if he would have lost Florida, then the entire election would have gone to Al Gore. So none of the other states would have mattered. Only Florida mattered. In 2016, that state was Wisconsin. And if Wisconsin had gone to Hillary Clinton, then the tipping point state would have been Pennsylvania for Trump. So none of the other states would have mattered. It was only Wisconsin that mattered at the end of the day, if we kind of ignore Michigan and Pennsylvania. So in 2020, right now, Donald Trump is down. If we look at Florida, Joe Biden has an 82% chance of winning Florida. In the JHK forecast polls, he is up by 5.4% if the election were held today. I do expect this to change. And if we look at recent polling out of Florida on the 538 weighted polls, Joe Biden is up by 6.8%. And I will explain to you right now why this poll is not completely accurate. But let's play with the presidential forecast manipulator. If Joe Biden wins Florida, let's see. So if Donald Trump wins Florida, he has a 67% chance of winning. And this is even on the JHK forecast, which I don't really trust entirely because I think it overestimates Joe Biden's chance of winning. But if Donald Trump wins Florida, you can see even on the JHK forecast, he has a 2/3 chance of winning. But let's see if it goes to Joe Biden. You see Donald Trump only has a 1% chance of winning. And his path, if he loses Florida, is only if he wins Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, and Arizona and North Carolina, all these states that he needs to win. Right now, I don't think Donald Trump has a shot in Michigan. Even if Donald Trump wins Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and North Carolina, but loses Florida, Joe Biden wins the election. So there's only there's not very many paths for Donald Trump to win if this happens. So let's do the very unlikely scenario that Donald Trump wins. So all of these, and let's see how many scenarios there are where. So out of 20,000 scenarios, there's only 75, which is less than point, or it's 0.4% chance of this simulation where this happens. So if Joe Biden wins Florida, it is a gone race. So let's look more at what Florida's polling like right now. So in April, Donald Trump was ahead. In early March, April, Donald Trump was ahead. He had a better chance of winning, even though the polls didn't necessarily reflect that he was up. And this was before the coronavirus hit. Florida's economy was doing very well. A lot of older folk were moving to Florida, and the Republicans were actually ahead in registrations than the Democrats, and they still are right now. I'll kind of show a video of that. But as the coronavirus has ravaged Florida, and recently the cases have gone up, and as we've seen this, we've seen on different models that Donald Trump's chances just have gone down. And unless Florida has a complete turnaround in its coronavirus cases, I think that Donald Trump will continue to poll very poorly there. If we look at the adjusted poll average on JHK, he's down by 8.2%. And this differs across different models. On the 538, he is down by 6.2 in Florida. I think the Real Clear Politics is like 6.8 on 538, 6.2 on the Real Clear Politics. But we've also seen the fundamentals and experts ratings change. Before the coronavirus hit, the experts' ratings were in the red, and the fundamentals were like very, very close. But we've seen now this has completely changed, and this is because Donald Trump has lost support among the voters 65 plus. I think in 2016 in Florida, he won 57 to 59% of these voters. And right now he's polling like right at 50% or under. And Florida has a very, very large elderly population. And typically this helps Republicans. And in 2018, it did so. So the polls were wrong in 2018. I honestly thought that the Andrew Gillum, who was the Democratic candidate for governor, and same with Bill Nelson, were going to win. But we can see that the polls were off by an average of 4 points. And people who say that, like, look, I don't look at the polls enough. I'm not basing my things off science. Well, you can see in 2018, if you just looked at the polls, you would have been completely wrong. The polls in Florida, I think there was a lot of kind of the shy DeSantis voter effect. I think people maybe were scared that they would be called a racist if they were voting for DeSantis, because this is something that Andrew Gillum piled on DeSantis in his campaign. But we do see that DeSantis came out ahead despite being down 4% in the polls. So let's adjust these polls in 2020. And this is, I think, the best case scenario. So Joe Biden would still win the state by 2.8 points, even if we adjusted the polls. So if Donald Trump does not get the poll margin within 4 points at the best, then I don't think there's any way he wins the election. And I'm saying it's 100% that Joe Biden is going to win. In 2016, I think on election day, Donald Trump was up in the polls just by a little bit, and he ended up winning by over a percentage point. But if we look at the history, no president has won the election without winning Florida in 100 years. So look, Donald Trump won it, Barack Obama won it, twice, George W. Bush. This time it was contested, and if George W. Bush had not lost Florida, which he very well could, maybe he might have lost it if there was a fair recount. I don't know. I wasn't really alive. I haven't done a lot of things. And there's only one exception to this rule, and this was in 1992, but this was a very weird election where there was like a bunch of third-party candidates, and that was 1992 when Bill Clinton lost it. But Ross Perot also took 20% of the vote, so I'm going to leave that out of my analysis. But if we look down this line, George H.W. Bush, Ronald Reagan twice, Jimmy Carter, Richard Nixon, Lyndon B. Johnson, John F. Kennedy. This is another race where I actually think Richard Nixon won the election. There was rampant voter fraud, especially in the state of Illinois, and I think Richard Nixon should have won this race, so that's why I'm also excluding it. Dwight D. Eisenhower, like you see that the election winner, and then, I mean, all the way back to 1924. So, I mean, this pattern is going to hold again. And the only two exceptions, what I said, was when there was a third-party candidate that won 20% of the vote. Even though, look, in 2016, it was 2.2% of the vote for third parties. It's not going to happen in 2020. There's not going to be any third-party candidates. People are like Kanye. Kanye's not going to take any of the vote, especially in Florida when everyone is super old and they've never even heard of Kanye. So that is what I think. I think this race will be easy to predict. If Joe Biden is up by 4% in the polls, you can call it done. I would bet so much money off of it. In 2016, I was a little bit uncertain about the result. I saw that everyone was calling for Hillary Clinton, but I was not sure. If Donald Trump is down by 4 points or more in Florida, I can call the election today, and I have no qualms about doing so. So I really hope you enjoyed this video, and please subscribe right here if you haven't already. See you tomorrow.